Welcome to More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. This is a podcast that highlights the amazing acts of service that lawyers perform all over the country. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinxcrow.com. Now here's the host of More Than a Lawyer, Christy Crow.
Welcome back to More Than a Lawyer. We're so glad to have you here with us today. And we're also glad to have with us here today Matt Trollinger. Matt is from Waldorf, Maryland. And if you don't know where that is, it's a little south of D.C. And he and his firm practice in all over Maryland and also in the D.C. area. So welcome to More Than a Lawyer, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Christy. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here. And we are going to talk a lot about what you do outside the courtroom. But before we start talking about that, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your firm, how you got started, and what kind of work you do?
Sure. So after law school, I went into personal injury work. Wasn't immediate, believe it or not. That was during one of these challenging hiring times for attorneys, young attorneys that passed the bar. And I actually coached part-time swimming and worked at a personal injury firm explaining the PI process to potential clients for one of these like large advertising firms that had commercials on TV. I really liked being able to help people through the process of injury through verdict or settlement. And I fell in love with the process. So I worked in downtown DC for a few years and moved to Southern Maryland shortly after that, learning how to do workers' comp and helping injured workers through their process. And for the last 7 years, I've had my own practice here in Southern Maryland. So it's been a lot of fun. We've grown a lot from sharing office space to a colleague of mine to now having a couple other attorneys and 9 staff and I'm needing more and more people every day. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and this is one of those challenging times when you need more people, because when you came out, it was challenging because there were too many lawyers for the market, and now there are not enough lawyers to meet the needs sometimes. So I'm sure that's been a challenge for you in the operations of the firm.
It has been a challenge, and you're right. It's kind of a complete 180 from when I graduated. But I think, and you've probably experienced this knowing the background of your firm and the good work that you do, if you're known in the community and you're doing things right, you tend to attract good people, whether you're looking or not, and opportunities become available. So we've been very fortunate and blessed to have some people join us that I wasn't necessarily looking for at the time, but I'm really glad they've joined us.
Well, it's always good to find good people that are a good fit. And that's one thing, since you did start your own firm kind of as a small solo sharing practice, sharing office space practice, tell us, how did you decide and why did you decide that community service and outreach was something that you were going to do when most people in that situation would just be working all the time, trying to scratch it out to make a living?
That's a great question. So growing up, I grew up in small town in Damascus, Maryland. I went to church in Gaithersburg, Maryland, growing up. And I don't know, my parents always had me doing all sorts of stuff. It was probably to keep me out of trouble, right? But volunteering in a bunch of different things, whether it was church or community related. And, throughout college, I played sports. And so when I first moved down here, the natural thing was to get involved in the swimming community, and I coached part-time while I was starting my practice, which, again, you're right, that was a challenge, but it was almost natural. I mean, when my wife and I moved down here, we didn't want to have a scenario where we went to work, left the community there, and then went home. We wanted to be people that had their roots fully in the community. We live here, we work here, we have our kids go to school here, and it's only natural to be available to those friends and neighbors around. Right. So it was very important for us, especially as a PI practice, to not be seen as the prototypical ambulance chasing folks that just get contingency fees. But we try to give back in a number of different areas that actually enhance our community.
Well, and you mentioned swimming multiple times, and I'm guessing that's probably the sport that you played in college.
I did. So yes, I couldn't hide it very well there. So I swam in college for a small school in Western Pennsylvania called Grove City College. And I was able to learn water polo and play water polo there for 4 years as well. So it was a lot of fun. And, athletics, really important to me growing up, just building character and discipline. And so, locally, we try to sponsor some athletic teams and some sports clubs just to make sure that the youth are getting the opportunity to grow the same way I did.
Why do you think that it's important for children and youth to participate in athletics, and what lessons did you learn from that? And are you trying to teach the kids that you're now coaching and sponsoring through that program?
Yeah. There are lots of different ways to learn, discipline and to foster character and grow through adversity. But I think in athletics, you're posed, depending on which sport you choose and which sport you are good at, you have opportunities to grow with your teammates, to encourage your teammates, to challenge yourself through competition, right? To do a number of things that are obviously very valuable to us as attorneys. So I know that when we look at people that are joining us as attorneys, I do look at their background, and if they have an athletic background, if they have experience in working in the restaurant business, you look at people skills, you look at teamwork skills, you see if there's a competitive fire there. And those are big pluses for us, because those things that you learn as a kid and how to overcome things, and sometimes tough coaching is okay, right? Are things that are very valuable as a professional later on.
Well, I know that working with swimming and coaching and sponsoring those teams isn't the only thing you do in your community. Tell us a little bit more about the other activities that you're involved with in your community and that your firm's involved with.
Sure. So we try to find groups that we can connect with that maybe have a nice reach into the community and that are doing things already that are doing a great job. So there's one group in our community called Lifestyles of Southern Maryland, and we try to connect with them every Thanksgiving to give out some Thanksgiving meals for locals in the community that have a hard time. They have a great program in helping people get reestablished after they've had some tough times, and some shelter and some abilities to go find new employment. They are fantastic. They have a clean drinking water program in one of our communities that is unbelievably still pretty behind modern times as far as clean water. So we've been blessed.
That's unbelievable. So there's a community around you that is having a problem getting clean water in Maryland, like in the shadow of the Capitol.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. But there's some local businesses in the community that I think anonymously have been very generous with that project as well. And just providing clean water, providing portable toilets and so forth. That is a need that they've tapped into and have been very consistently faithful in ministering to those folks. So that's one program we've been involved with. We've also been involved with trying to help and kind of highlight some of our public safety workers in our community. We sponsor First Responders Night at a local small baseball club in Charles County called the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs. And so any first responder or veteran and their families can come to a game. We try to get it close to 9/11 as much as possible. They can all come to the game for free, and there's fireworks, and it's a great time. And at the same time, we take nominations from our community of 3 first responders from our local counties. So they get to throw out the first pitch. They get a monetary award. They get a plaque from us, and we publish their story in our local newspaper. So it's an opportunity for them to get a little bit of recognition for the day-to-day, sacrifices they make to make our community safe and a great place to live. That their coworkers know, right? But sometimes even the neighbor across the street has no idea the great things that they're doing.
What made you decide to focus on first responders and veterans and being the people that you want to highlight and honor?
We've had the opportunity of representing a number of police officers in our area and EMTs, and it's amazing. They'll kind of offhanded tell you about some of the things that they struggle with on the day to day, and about the bigger things, right? We're helping them with their work injuries, but just the constant grind that they have, and the fact that I think we all have a surface level respect for the kinds of things that they do, but we wanted to enhance that for them. And we wanted to take nominations from inside their community and the greater community at large to make sure that people know these are real people. These are your neighbors, your friends, your kids, soccer coach or hockey coach that's, and I'll tell you, Christy, it's funny. Most of the nominations we get from folks, this first responder is not just involved in the sheriff's office. They're also a volunteer firefighter or EMT. And they've got 3 or 4 different organizations they're plugged into that they're just endlessly giving. So if there's an opportunity for us to give back even just a little bit, I think that's helpful in making a difference.
One thing that I've learned in representing some law enforcement officers and first responders is just how woefully underpaid they are too. I mean, they have to be passionate about doing what they're doing because they do go into harm's way and take chances with their own life and are doing that not for the money, obviously. So it's really great that you're taking this opportunity to give them some recognition and also to highlight the great things they're doing. How else do you try to highlight some of the things that your first responders are doing in your community?
Yeah. So, anytime we get an opportunity to try to, of course, if there's a golfing event that helps the FOP, we want to try to do that. I am involved on the political side of things as well. Locally, I know one of your other guests was, and I think we had a question there as to why is it that attorneys are asked there. It's kind of a magnet to get into politics. I'm on a local town council, the town of La Plata. And so we see things of challenges that our local police have as well. And, we just try to be aware of ways that we can support the people that are supporting the backbone of the community.
That's great, and a great way to recognize those who often get overlooked. So that's really amazing. Why do you think that lawyers are so often asked to be on city councils and serve in the legislature? And why do you think it's a good idea for us to do that?
I think there's a number of reasons why we're asked to do that. I think one of the reasons is we have a respect for the rule of law. Okay, we have an understanding of how processes should work and how order should be placed and that things are done correctly, right? Some people in the community have an opinion about attorneys, but we're actually one of the only professions that has a self-reporting ethics obligation, right?
Yeah.
And so the people that understand that, they know that we are bound by our rules of ethics that are greater than any other profession that I'm aware of. And that's helpful. But also they know that an attorney is probably going to give their full effort, their full time and attention. And I'm glad that we've been asked to do that. We have another attorney in our office who's part of the local appeals board. And, it's not for the glory of it, right?
Yeah.
He does it because he understands that there's an obligation and there's a responsibility to give back to the community in a way that we have talents and ways to do that.
And you touched on this a little bit, but I want to explore more about how you are able to find people to work in your firm that do have that desire to serve and understand the importance of that? And how do you make that a priority within your firm? Like, do you give folks time off to go do these volunteer things, or do you just happen to attract people that like to do that?
Well, I will admit, one of the firms that I used to work with, we had a committee within the firm that looked for opportunities to give back. And I was really struck by that, because even though I had worked with some good people at other places, it was never intentional. And I think with how busy we are with court schedules, with clients and families and activities, you have to be intentional, and you have to actually sit down and say, hey, let's identify some ways that we can give back. So if you hear, we recently were able to sponsor a mental health program that one of my friends in Frederick was co-chairing. We've been involved in that for years, because we recognize how many of our clients have issues when they go through the process. And there are very natural ways that align with our vision and our values. But if you're not paying attention and you're not talking about it at team meetings, you're not going to make that a priority. So I've told my staff, if there's essentially a non-political charity that really has made an impact in your life, let me know. Let's find a way that we can personally make a connection and try to help them in their goals. And so we've done that. And it's a neat opportunity, because again, you're empowering your staff to not just come to a workplace, but they're making a difference with their clients, but they're also making a difference in a tangible way with their community. And that's a special thing to be a part of.
And I think you're right. Repetition is the key. So talking about it at team meetings and living it in your own life are two great ways to repeat it intentionally with words and subconsciously with your actions. So those are great recommendations for people that are listening in. And speaking of people that are listening in, what if somebody's listening in and thinks, oh, this is great, I should probably do more things in my community? What advice would you give him or her about how to get involved in their community and how to get involved in community service?
So I think one of the most natural things, right, is to follow your passion, right? We're not just lawyers, as your podcast suggests. We're fathers, we're mothers, we're sisters, brothers, and community members. So where your passion leads you, you'll find opportunities where people are hurting or they need help, right? Not just with our practice areas. So, whether it's community at church and you're getting to actually know people, right? You're going to be paying attention a little bit better and looking for opportunities. So I think naturally, like you said, repetition and being intentional is important, because the opportunities are all around us. I know it's exhausting to fight all day long with adjusters and defense attorneys where we have to for the sake of our clients. But boy, does it feel good to, after hours or even sometimes during the day, and you're blocking time off, to go volunteer somewhere. I mean, to just get your hands dirty and do something completely different, and joining community members. So it's not just a good idea for your practice, it's a good idea for your soul.
I was going to say that, sometimes if I take off for an hour or two and go do something like that, I come back with more energy and more revitalized to do the fighting with the adjusters and the defense lawyers and all those things than if I just stay at the office and grind it out. So I do think that's a great way to say that it's just good for your soul to get out and be in community with people around you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, I'm going to wrap up, but this being the More Than a Lawyer podcast, tell us what being more than a lawyer means to you.
Yeah, so being more than a lawyer means to me, it's kind of authenticity even in your practice, right? So You know, I'm a member of my church, right? I'm a father. I'm very interested in my kids' sports teams. We have multiple facets about us as human beings that I think we need to be giving back every day, looking for opportunities to help through our practice and outside. And I think it's helpful for potential clients and other community members to know that we're approachable, right? And to know that we're here to help in a number of different ways. And so I love what you're doing with your podcast and highlighting that, hey, we're not just great in court and a really zealous advocate for our clients, but we're also zealous advocates for the good of our community.
Well, thanks so much, Matt. I hope one of those sports teams that your kids participate in is a swimming team. But if not, maybe they will soon get interested in that. And thanks for being on More Than a Lawyer. It's been great to hear what you're doing in the Waldorf, Maryland, and D.C. area. And I hope to see you next time I'm up there.
Oh, thanks. You'll be more than welcome to join us. We'd love to have you.
Great.
You've been tuning into More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinxcrow.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.